There comes a moment when you finally notice a quiet truth pulsing beneath your life. You've been trying to matter, trying to stand out in a world that barely slows down long enough to breathe, trying to prove to others and to yourself that you're not just another life drifting toward the same end as everyone else. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, isn't it? To live with the weight of being different, while fearing deep inside that you're not different at all, that you're just another spark that flickers, rises, and returns to the dark. And it's here in this hidden tension between wanting to matter and fearing the truth that today's reflection begins. Not with noise, not with ambition, but with the soft, unsettling understanding that everything returns to the same altar, every joy, every name, every story. Caleb learned this not through victory, but through surrender, through the quiet moments where the world stripped away every illusion he clung to, leaving only the essence, the part of him that couldn't be taken, compared, or measured. There, in that fragile honesty, he discovered a power he didn't know he had, the power that comes when you stop fighting the inevitable and start walking with it. Because when you finally let go of the need to stand above anyone, you discover something deeper than superiority. You discover freedom. You discover dignity. You discover the kind of peace that isn't borrowed from the world, but grown quietly inside your own silence. And that's where our story takes you now, into the space where everything becomes equal. And because of that, you finally learn how to rise. There are days when you feel like your life carries no weight, like you're just another face, another voice dissolving into the world's endless noise. Sometimes it seems as if no one would notice if you suddenly disappeared. That quiet pain drains the color from your chest. It lives there, waiting for the moment the world stops buzzing and the silence returns. But beneath that silence lies a truth older than your fear. We all fall into the same place. Some sooner, some later, but no fall is superior to another. Every story eventually breaks apart and returns to the same stillness. Difference is a myth we cling to because we're afraid of the idea of being equal. Caleb walks through an abandoned temple. Dust floats in the stagnant air like forgotten thoughts. He watches the ash descend, slow and indifferent. None of it holds identity. None of it holds rank. It all settles into the same silence, the same ground, the same return. In your own life, you compare yourself to others constantly. Who's ahead? Who shines more? Who's winning while you feel stuck? But comparison is just a trick your fear plays on you. Ashes that fall fast are not better. Ashes that fall slow are not worse. Everything is simply following its own rhythm. And what does this mean for you? It means part of your suffering comes from believing in a race that doesn't exist. There is no leaderboard. There is only the return. When you understand this, something unclenches inside you, and you finally breathe. Sometimes you look at your past and feel the sting of wasted time. A version of you that should have been stronger, wiser, faster. And the guilt sits inside you like rust, eating everything from within. But time does not bargain. It does not pause for regret, nor is it impressed by achievement. In a dark chamber, Caleb watches a trail of smoke rise. It emerges with form and tension, almost dignity. but the act of rising itself destroys it. The higher it goes, the more it scatters, until it becomes nothing, reminding him that every form pays the same price: disappearance. The truth is harsh but liberating. Time holds no judgment. It swallows victories and mistakes with the same mouth. It erases the extraordinary and the ordinary with equal ease. And your guilt, your heavy, crushing guilt, exists only because you resist this current. Think of someone who clings to the past, who whispers, "I was better," or "I ruined everything," as if the past still exists somewhere. But the past has already become ash. Trying to hold it only stains your hands. And what does this mean for you? It means your guilt is smoke-dense in appearance, but weightless when you stop feeding it. Time takes everything to the same altar, even the part of you that refuses to let go. You've carried a quiet wound for years, the need to prove you're different, unique, worthy of attention, respect, remembrance. This need tightens around your mind like a rope, but most of your pain comes from this illusion, the fantasy of a self that must stand above others to survive, a self that cannot fail, a self that must be exceptional or else disappear. It's a battle you cannot win because it's a battle against reality. Caleb walks through a corridor of stone. Old torches hang lifeless on the walls. He brushes his hand against them and finds the same cold ash on every one, remains of flames that once believed they would burn forever. Now they are equal. In life, you push yourself to stand out. You post more, talk more, achieve more, chase more. You run toward recognition like someone fleeing their own shadow. But the pursuit doesn't make you stronger. It makes you hollow. And when you understand the truth of ash, something shifts. Being equal is not humiliation. It is nature. It is honesty. You do not need to be special. You need to be whole. And what does this mean for you? It means your value does not need proof. The world owes you nothing, yet that changes nothing about your depth. When you stop striving to be different, you finally become true. There are moments when you feel ashamed of who you've been, ashamed of your mistakes, your reactions, your weaknesses, ashamed of not being the version you told yourself you should be. That shame becomes a shadow that follows you everywhere, a weight that never lets you breathe fully. But this shame comes from believing you stand below others, as if your errors make you fundamentally different, as if people are watching you with measuring eyes. But the altar where everything returns does not recognize your shame. It recognizes only what is. Caleb kneels before the extinguished altar. The floor is covered with anonymous ash. He touches the dust and sees that no particle carries a story different from another. Everything mixes, everything becomes equal, everything loses distinction. There is no identity in what remains of life, only matter. And in that sameness, shame simply cannot exist. When you realize that everything ends here, something shifts inside you. Your mistakes stop looking like monsters. They become part of the human experience. Pain stops looking like weakness. It becomes proof that you are alive. Shame grows only where comparison exists. And at this altar, no one is above or below anyone. There's a fear you carry everywhere, the fear of losing what you love. people, phases, identities, roles you've learned to wear. The more you try to hold everything together, the heavier it becomes. Attachment becomes a subtle prison. But here is a truth few dare to face. Nothing you have is truly yours. Not even the version of yourself you cling to. Everything is borrowed. Everything cycles. And the more you force what is temporary to be permanent, the more you suffer. Caleb steps into an open-roofed hall. The wind moves through like it owns the space. In the center, a stone bowl filled with ancient ash. He blows gently, and the ashes rise, scatter, disappear. They were never his. They were never meant to stay. In your own life, you hold on too tightly to relationships that emotionally ended years ago, to versions of yourself that no longer exist, to identities that keep you afraid of change. Holding on only wounds you more. And what does this mean for you? It means much of your suffering is resistance to the inevitable. When you release, when you stop demanding permanence, you feel the first real breath in years. Loss doesn't break you, it reveals you. Sometimes the world feels heavy against your skin. Every look pierces. Every silence feels like a judgment. You carry the sense that you're constantly being evaluated. This creates a barrier between you and everyone else. But that barrier is an illusion. It is built from the belief that you are separate, that you are watched more than others, judged more, exposed more. But on the altar where everything ends equal, that barrier dissolves. There is no them and you, only existence. Caleb walks through a narrow corridor without light. The walls are covered in old scratches. He runs his fingers over them and feels the same depth in each. Pain left no unique signature. It's all echoes of lives fighting in similar ways. In your life, you think your suffering is unusual, that you alone feel this exposed, this fragile, this unsteady. But everyone carries this same weight, some in silence, some screaming inside. Everyone thinks they're alone, while standing in a crowded room. And what does this mean for you? It means you do not need to fight the world, because the world is made of the same dust as you, the same fragility, the same need to continue. There's a silence you avoid, the silence that shows up when distractions fade, when the house quiets, when the day runs out of noise. In that silence you hear yourself and it scares you. But silence holds something crucial. It reveals the truth beneath everything, that you are not above anyone nor below them. You are simply here, existing. Caleb enters a circular room. No windows, no visible doors, only the sound of ash gently falling like forgotten snow. He sits on the cold ground and breathes deeply, and he realizes silence does not judge him. It only levels him. In life, you fill your days with noise, empty conversations, notifications, obligations you never chose. Not out of passion, but out of fear. Fear of what silence might reveal. But when you finally sit with it, silence becomes an altar too, a place where everything loses form, where you don't need to perform or compare, where you simply exist. And in that existence you find peace. There's a fear everyone hides, the fear of endings. Endings of relationships, identities, roles, hopes. You fear losing what you built, who you were, what you thought you controlled. That fear makes every step feel like the edge of a cliff. But there is serenity in accepting the end, because endings are equalizers too. Everyone returns to them. They are not punishments, they are transitions. A breath the universe takes before reshaping you. Caleb stands before a half-open door. Behind it only darkness. No sound. No promise. He touches the wood hesitantly, then courageously, and pushes it open. The darkness doesn't reveal anything. But for the first time, he is not threatened. He steps inside and understands. This is not emptiness, but space. Space for what was to rest. Space for what will be to form. The end is not a wall, but a quiet beginning waiting for shape. In the end, everything returns to the same quiet place, the same altar, the same dust, the same stillness beneath all the noise you've carried for years. But now something inside you has changed. You've walked with Caleb through comparison, guilt, shame, attachment, silence, and endings. You've seen how all of it dissolves into the same truth. Nothing stands above anything else. No life is smaller. No life is greater. And somehow, this makes you stronger. Because once you stop chasing difference, you finally rise above your own fear. Strength comes from seeing yourself clearly, without illusion, without the need to impress, without the old hunger for validation. This is the kind of power that doesn't need applause. It grows quietly, like roots in the dark, invisible at first, until the whole tree shifts because of it. So now, before you leave, ask yourself, what part of you is ready to return to the altar tonight? What fear, what shame, what attachment is ready to dissolve so something new can take shape? And if this story reached you, stay close. Follow the next chapter. Keep walking deeper into the silence where your real strength lives.